A very good morning to everyone present here. I am Rashmika Tiwari. I request AV team to play the session AV, please.
Session 1.
I request Mr. Saurabh Mehta, Director of Kriti Industries India Limited and Executive Committee Member IMA, to escort our esteemed speakers, Architect Manish Gulati, Principal Architect and Founding Partner, OFA Studio, Mr. Ramshray Yadav, Founder and CEO, Integro Asset Management, and Dr. Parimal Merchant, Director Global FMB Programs, SP Jain School of Global Management, to the stage. Architect Manish's visionary leadership has propelled the firm to the forefront of India's design scene, with a diverse portfolio spanning public spaces, institutional buildings, and humanitarian projects. Grounded in sustainability and innovation, Sir's approach underscores the transformative potential of design in addressing global challenges. Mr. Ramshray boasts over 2 decades of expertise in real estate, banking, and investment, with a philosophy rooted in incremental progress leading to substantial impact. He spearheads India's financialization of real business estates. Dr. Parimal specializes in family business education with over 30 years of experience. His unique insights have shaped the landscape of family business culture in India. I request CA Santosh Muchalji, partner Muchal and Gupta Chartered Accountancies, and immediate past president IMA, to do the floral welcome of Architect Manish Gulati. Mr. Kalpak Gandhiji, Managing Director, Methodex System, to do the floral welcome of Mr. Ramshray Yadav. And can I have Mr. Arpit Jain sir ready? Mr. Arpit Jain, Managing Director, Arihant Capital Markets Limited, will do floral welcome of Dr. Parimal Merchant. I request AV team to play the introduction video of Architect Manish Gulati, please.
Mr. Manish Gulati. Introducing Manish Gulati, an acclaimed architect and distinguished alumni of CPT, Ahmedabad. Founder of OFA Studios, Manish's journey began in the dynamic realm of events and exhibitions, evolving swiftly to establish his own firm. Under his visionary leadership, OFA Studios has garnered numerous awards. accolades, and widespread recognition, firmly positioning itself among India's top design firms. Renowned for their expertise in crafting public spaces and institutional buildings, their portfolio encompasses a diverse array of projects, from expensive stadiums to intimate private homes and impactful humanitarian research endeavors. At the heart of Manish's philosophy is a deep-rooted belief in the transformative power of design and innovation. He champions a holistic approach, seamlessly integrating sustainability into every facet of the design process. With an unwavering commitment to excellence, Manish continues to push the boundaries of creativity, believing that through design, solutions to the world's most pressing challenges can be realized. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome Mr. Manish Gulati.
This is what, yeah. Hi, good morning, everybody. I am delighted and ecstatic to be in such esteemed audience, and the session before me paved the way for what I'm going to be talking. It was a great session for me to pick up from there. So you must be wondering what an architect is doing in a session like this, where we're only talking about management and finances and everything, and what does an architect know about all of these things. But I'm here today, and the topic that I've taken is competition and use of AI for the development of global growth. What is competition in construction and architecture? We are about 20-year-old firm, and in these last 20 years, we have gone through a journey of construction and building where technology has also gone simultaneously with us. We have grown the construction industry. At the same time, how the technological changes have happened, it's revolutionary to kind of use that and make it more efficient way of building. And we call our work always work in progress. We are a studio, we are a small laboratory where we are experimenting and we are creating newer and newer systems, more efficient systems that make the construction process, that make the design process more sustainable, more green, but at the same time more efficient and more financially viable. I mean, it's a term that architects don't usually use, ROI, but it's something that we have sort of started looking at. I mean, sustainability cannot be just environmental sustainability. It has to be financial sustainability as well. It has to be socio-economic sustainability for every project. So for the first 10 years, which is what I call MOFA 1.0, if we explored the basics of architecture through the basic construction of buildings, of institutions and public buildings, we understood the behavioral patterns of how people use the buildings in this country. How we have done projects all over the country. The closest one here is a stadium we've done in Devas, Tukoji Rao Stadium, which was done more than 15 years ago. And more such public projects help us understand how people use public spaces in India or locally, or how they're connected at a global level. MOFA 2.0 is a more specific need in terms of integration of services, integration of how a building functions like a machine, like a flawless machine, where it's not just putting up a structure together, but it's also at the same time saying that it's energy efficient, it's water management efficient, the air purification systems, the quality of air, all those are monitored and self-monitored using technology. As a future projection, now we have also started using a lot of simulations, computation, and AI, so what we call generative AI, in which we are able to predict a very specific pattern of a building, of how it's going to react in the next 10 years, 20 years, to the next 50 years, and that helps us understand what is a global impact of buildings of certain nature, what needs to be done and what should not be done. I'm going to be presenting 3 or 4 projects today. This is a project that got inaugurated last week by the Prime Minister in Goa. It's the National Institute of Water Sports. As a public institution building, it is a Ministry of Tourism venture, first of its kind in the world that gives licenses on adventure water sports, rescue operations for defense, and including BBA and MBA courses in tourism, all under one roof at a government level. There's no other government in the world that's providing something like this under one umbrella. So when we got this project, and this project did take a long time to construct, and this is where I'm coming to, when we use the traditional methods of construction and traditional methods of doing things, we have learned and understood the way forward to cut down that time and cut down those financial impacts on projects of these kind. National Institute of Water Sports, in a poetic language, was conceived more as, what if you are trapped inside a wave? You're a water sports adventurer. What is the main thing as an adventurer? You don't want a classroom which is static. You want an environment that challenges you, that is dynamic, and that's something that replicates your experience inside the sea. Because most of the people there, let's face it, are not there for theory classes. Theory classes are very little, but the major component of the building is to act like a connection or a bridge between the land and the sea. So these are some initial paper models as how every conventional architect works. We make paper models, but from here on, the entire process changed. The first rendering or the bird's eye view that we presented to the government as what the project vision was. These are the visionary images, or what we call the artist's impression. And from there, we started analyzing, breaking down the building, literally like how a doctor scans a body, but there's no body and you're constructing that body. It's a reverse engineering of the whole thing. So right from understanding daylight, every classroom should get certain amount of lux level, certain amount of light, certain kind of air, ventilation. We did multiple simulations, and there have been more than 200 iterations to understand just the form, just the lights, skylights, windows, openings, through a long competition and a simulation process. The whole thing was done to control costs, to create an accuracy of a design like this at a government setup. Because when you're doing an L1 contract, and we all are aware of how L1 contracts work all over the world, it's not just about India, everywhere, a lowest bid contractor it is an extreme challenge to do a building of this nature with the lowest cost. So another challenge to us with L1 was we couldn't use any mechanical methods or cranes to build a building like this. We had to sort of break it down into smaller components so that we could build smaller components and it could be manually built together on site. And what we had to do was we had to sort of recycle a lot of construction waste that was getting generated by the building itself into making of the building and the finishing of the building. So that was a huge challenge that we put ourselves onto. As an initial form, we broke down the entire roof into smaller modules. And these modules, now if you basically understand, if you're doing a large curved roof and you want to construct it, how do you measure it? How do you put it together on a large scale like this? And I'm talking about 40,000 square feet of roof, which is spanning from one end to another end, almost 200 meters. How do you get the accuracy to get that form and that shape? So you build smaller modules. And if we understand the dimensioning system, X, Y, and Z axis, unless you get the Z axis for every point in the roof correctly, you're not going to get a complete form like this in a correct manner. We couldn't use cranes to put it together. So I think I went back to my understanding, and there was this image in Mahabharata of Bhishma Pitama lying on a bed of arrows, how the body is pronked up on those arrows. And we realized that there was a lot of waste reinforcement bars, the steel on the side from the construction of RCC. We used those to get our Z-axis to build these smaller modules, and these smaller modules were then taken up and constructed as a highly accurate and a perfect geometry roof with only a margin error of 3 mm by 3 mm. We did a detailed rainwater analysis. Goa rains a lot. It almost rains 1 meter per hour if in the extreme rain situations. And if not taken care of, the whole building would be leaking. So we did a detailed simulation with the exact climate data, with the volume of water that would be coming in for the last 20 years, and a prediction of next 20 years with how the sea levels are rising and everything, to understand how to design the gutter systems or the drainage systems for a building like this. The construction drawings were done as an automated process within the office. We created an entire software to have detailed construction drawings where every steel pipe could be cut and bent at a specific angle. And these 5,000 drawings literally translated into a roof, out of which a lot of it was also done as file to factory. And a file to factory concept, if I explain, is you send a CAD file, and that CAD file sort of, you cut it, bend it into a factory, and bring these prefabricated modules, and you place them over the entire thing. The monitors are off here, so I'm not able to see. That's during the construction. For a large space like this, there's also a problem of sound, acoustics. How do you handle that? A detailed simulation was done where we did not want to close these classrooms off with large walls. We wanted to have the visual continuity, but at the same time, create a system that could contain the sound of every classroom within the same space itself without spilling over. So a simulation for sound that was done. And this resulted in 2 classrooms of this nature, where the acoustic panels on top take care of the entire sound spillage, right from high frequency to the low frequency, and one classroom sound does not go to the other classroom without, and there's no physical barrier. Beyond a certain height of the wall, it's all open, but the sound is completely contained. Some of the photographs, can I have these monitors on, because these are not on? So yeah, that's the overall project. Now, that's how it sits in front of the sea, and that's its overall context in Goa. Next time any of you are in Goa, please have a look, visit this project. It's one of its kind. Now I come to the next level. That was a conventional way of construction as far as I'm concerned. Now we're getting into a newer realms of construction, and we've heard of 3D printed buildings. I think the biggest example everybody has been giving off late, that China has been constructing these 3D printed buildings, and they construct an entire 8th floor in about 36 hours or 48 hours or those kind of figures. Yes, construction technology has gone to the next level now. And since that has gone to the next level, we also changed our entire designing process. Conventionally, an architect would draw lines, would draw plans, would layouts, and those layouts would go into a 3-dimensional building, and that would get constructed. Here, we reverse engineered. We didn't think about creating lines or layout plans here. But for us, what most important for every project is the functional brief. What are the functions inside a building? You have a multipurpose hall, you have a salon, you have creche, it's a public building, it's a club. The functions of the club, how they're interrelated to each other, you cannot understand them only at one layer of plan. So we didn't want to create a building where you say these functions are on the ground floor, then first floor, and then second floor. No, there is no division of floors. But what is most important for a project of this nature is the interconnectivity of functions within themselves, as what we call a mother and child relationship. Now, in a simple terms, if I look at this hall here, there is a space outside that's connected to it, which we call the ante space, or the space where the tea coffees are served. That will always be part of the banquet hall. So banquet hall becomes the mother, and that space becomes the child. So we did this interconnectivity of mother and child relationship and wrote a program that sort of, now this is understanding from how the animal kingdom works, how the insect kingdom works. If you look at ants and termites, they create these nests. So you have the queen ant and you have the other ants, and they are all so well interconnected in the animal kingdom that they're able to carve out spaces which are more organic, yet they are able to feed to each other without layering and dividing the way we humans do. We did multiple simulations where the moment you change the area within the Excel sheet, the whole form of the building and the interrelationship of function changes. And these are the first initial models that came up. It almost represents an anthill, what we call in the architectural terms a Voronoi structure or a honeycomb structure. A honeycomb structure is very simply, we all understand how the bees make their colonies. a very stable structure that stays on the trees, hangs from cliffs and mountains, and nothing happens, it stays against gravity. So a similar interconnected structure is what we have conceived for a project, which would be 3D printed. We're starting on this construction. With this kind of a project, the construction would not take more than 3 weeks, but the planning of it would take about a year, because we have to be absolutely precise in terms of where the cables, conduits, pipes, walls, glasses, everything is going to go, so that we can, while it's getting 3D printed, we are able to leave notches and gaps and everything for the future sort of doing of the whole thing. Now, this is where it gets interesting. We have started integrating AI with the generative computational coding. So the moment we are developing a certain form, the AI is helping us visualize what it's going to look like in the real terms, with real textures, with real light, with real simulations, with people, with scale. And every time we change a function, it helps us visualize what the entire space could be, or what is the quality of natural light or the sunlight we're getting in. How much sunlight we'll get into a building like this. Unless we're able to visualize this, we're only working on mechanical terms. It helps us visualize scales, making it more human or humane at the same level. This brings me to another project, and you must be wondering, why am I showing a single house, going from that scale to this scale? But here, this is not just a house. It's one of the most technologically advanced houses where everything is based on automation and voice commands. Right from the air quality temperature to the temperature, to even the opening of doors or the security systems is all controlled using voice. The process of design for something like this, again, very similar to how we did the clubhouse, where the client wanted a very large basement area or the lower ground area as an open space for public gatherings, parties, almost 100 feet by 50 feet space, and the rest of the house is supposed to hang on top of it. But at the same time, the challenge was that the basement should get enough sunlight for him to grow a tree or a patch of greens inside that basement. How do you achieve something like this? Now, you can predict, but the sun patterns, and to understand that, we again went into reverse. Now, keeping that in mind, we simulated, we put these conditions that, okay, in 1 year, one space of the house should get sunlight for at least 3 hours, which is that corner of the house in this kind of plot with the way it's sitting, which is that space which will get at least 3 hours of sunlight every day. So we wrote a program that gave us more than 27,000 iterations or various plans or arrangements in one single night. And we narrowed it down to lesser iterations. We added more functions to it. We added functions of bedrooms and functionality to the entire thing. And a plan sort of started appearing out of these iterations. And we were able to get a layout which is the most efficient layout, which gives us enough sunlight, which works functionally, and we still haven't drawn a single line to show to the client that, this is where your bedroom is and this is where your living room is. It's the generative AI that is doing this entire back-end calculations for us and telling us and predicting that this is how your house should be. Ultimately, the house section or the plan appears where if you see the yellow part is the lower basement, which has got a height of about 40 feet. It's an open space, and the main house sits on top of it with a swimming pool. The purple areas are the service areas. So this is simulation of sunlight, right from morning till evening in every sort of season. We took one date in every month and simulated the shadow pattern and the sunlight pattern. And today, in fact, I don't have that photograph with me right now. We took a photograph on 25th of December because that is what I had predicted to the client, that on this corner of your house, 25th of December at 11 a.m. in the morning, you will get a patch of sunlight. And we took that simulation, we took that photograph, it's exactly the same. In fact, the whole house was designed using virtual reality because it was COVID times. The client and us did not meet for 6 months. This whole thing, this whole exercise was happening in a virtual reality environment where he's wearing a headset and I was wearing a headset, and we are entering a virtual space where he's able to visualize how the internal spaces are, and we are talking while we are interacting in that virtual space, and we are designing the whole house without meeting even once during that 6 months. In fact, once the house was designed and it was going into construction, the first time we met when we started the Bhumi Pujan. So that's what I'm talking about, the future of design, the future where we use augmented reality and virtual reality to our advantage. The house model has been built to such a large detail that every structural beam, column, air conditioning duct, electrical pipeline, plumbing pipelines have been detailed model, and there's a simulative behavior that has been predicted. So right from the fluid control of water to the air, everything has been simulated in such a way that, of course, this is a romantic photograph of an interior, of what this whole house is going to look like, and that's the natural sunlight being predicted coming to the house. That's the basement, and we are almost 25 feet below the ground. The structural system, detailed analysis, this is a detailed model that was done. So we are able to predict the forces. The structural engineer is able to understand the bending moments and the nature of the building at every bolt and every junction with a model of this nature. Same goes, this helps us make the whole house into as a kit of parts, like how the Lego build-up happens. The whole house has been built using these beams which have been fabricated in a factory off-site, brought to the site, and then assembled like a Lego. So within about 6 months, we were able to construct the entire house, 6 floors from scratch. Of course, the structure is complicated because it's 50 feet of span without any columns, and those holes that you see, they take all air conditioning ducts to electrical conduits to drainage pipes and everything. So it's a very well laid out system like a human body. You've got the bones and the nerves and the arteries running through. That's some of the photographs during construction. The service layouts, the detailed service models, where the blue ones you see are the air conditioning ducts, where we're using a high efficiency air conditioning system where the duct is only 2.5 inches with high CFM, and high CFM is more air in less amount of time, is to make this whole air conditioning system more efficient and thereby saving about 70% of electricity. This helped us create something called a digital twin. This model, which is a virtual model, carries every information like a DNA of the building. So tomorrow, whenever a client wants to look through the building, you look at this thing, you don't know where an air conditioning pipe is or where this is inside the roof because it's all hidden. This is like an X-ray model. He can cut the building through at any point and see what is running inside that specific area and at that specific point. So he can monitor the nature or the health of the building using the automation system through the digital twin model itself from his iPad or his iPhone. I come to the last part of my presentation. What are we doing this? What is the digital impact of design? What is the entire nature of design today? How people perceive? I think we all have to agree that there's a generational shift that has happened. We hear these terms, Gen Z, Gen Y, Gen X, and we are all aware of these terms. When we say a Gen Z, and we say they were born with technology, what does it mean? What does it mean on the behavioral pattern? How does it affect the design world or a design practice like ours? Of course, traditionally, the practice was always divided into the academic and the build side. Then there is communication, there is PR, and then what we have is the unstoppable social media. The social media, no matter how much we kind of say that it does not affect the life of ours, at every point, at every step, social media is slowly, we have already entered the matrix. And what we are living, and this is a very interesting term that I heard, 60-second real life, where the life and death of anything, any concept or any idea lives for 60 seconds on social media. A trend, if it lasts, if it goes viral within that 60 seconds, it goes, otherwise it dies down. So the entire world that exists in this virtual simulated reality, we have two things happening. A digital consumerism, where fast-paced images are thrown at you. If you're scrolling your phone and looking at the reel, you're consuming those images by the second, by the millisecond. And almost everybody wants to be exclusive. Everybody wants to be famous. Everybody wants to be viral on that. But when everybody wants to be exclusive, everything becomes neutral. What is trending also becomes neutral within the next few seconds. So what we're living is this simulated reality, and we reach to a stage where we call digital neutrality. Well, there is absolutely no difference. Within the same chaos, everybody is following the same pattern. People are trying to be different by the second, but within that same few seconds, everything becomes neutral. So how do you stand out? The next generation is looking at newer and newer ideas of being non-conformist. There is a whole generational shift that's happening between how we thought and how the younger generation is thinking. They want to be non-conformist to the ideas that have been existing till now. There is impatience because you can predict and you can see things much faster. This whole paradoxical thinking has, and I was surprised by my own media analytics team, that your social media engagement, if it doesn't happen within the 7 seconds, it will die down. So now we've come from 60 seconds to 7 seconds of engagement time on social media. And this is our social media where you can see the audience retention on the best of things, best of views. By the 3rd or the 4th second, it starts dying down. That is what we're talking about. I mean, these are some of the visuals that we generated. And we are entering this world which we call the surrealism, visualization, and collective memories. A reality that does not exist, has never existed, and cannot exist. But within the world of AI, and which is what the future is, there are multiple realities that are existing and will exist. The realities that you and I do not think about. The realities that you and I have never imagined, but AI can imagine. And this has been done. I used a popular icon of Gandhi and made him sit consuming fast food in a fast food restaurant. That situation has never happened in the world. But AI can generate it to that precision. It's a famous quote by Umberto Eco. Newspapers teach people how they should think. Unfortunately, all we learn is fake and deformed. The popular culture consists of a reference made by the fake that is replacing the truth to itself, as mentioned in the simulation theory, not a reality away from itself. Now, if you look at that photograph, that beautiful photograph of a burger, it's no photographer in the world can click that. It's generated using AI. If you can do that, one can create any photograph, any burger, any food that has not existed. And these have become images that are getting circulated day in and day out. So we said, why not do an experiment? Why don't do a social experiment to understand this whole concept? We got a project to design a restaurant. And we said, why don't we design it in a way that it responds to social media, it responds to the pressure of what's happening right now, and why do you go to restaurants today? There was a time 30 years ago we used to go to restaurants to eat food because food was the main hero. You knew that you want to eat this with your family and you go there. But if you look at the younger generation, you look at the newer restaurants that are coming up, the theme restaurants, they're not for food. Food is taken care of by the aggregators. Swiggy and Zomato would deliver the food to your houses. You don't need that. You're going to the restaurant, not also for the experience, because a lot of the experience you're still getting sitting at home. You're going there so that you can post a story of yourself sitting in the restaurant, which you get tagged and you get multiple followers. I mean, that is what the reality of going to a restaurant today is. It is designed and a curated culinary experience. It's not the overall reality. You're not just eating a masala dosa. You're eating a curated plate which may appear to be that way, but it's got a lot more happening behind it. It's funded by the private investors, and I don't want to be killed in this conference talking about finances because there are experts sitting out here, but it's also controlled by the aggregators, influencers, and social media. Today, a restaurant can run well or bad based on what the prediction of a social influencer is. I mean, if an influencer has written it off, or if one of the aggregators like Zomato and Swiggy write it off, that restaurant will die down, in especially cities like Delhi and Mumbai where the investments are very, very high. So we said, let's do an experiential visualization using AI. Let's design a restaurant completely using AI. Let's not put our minds to it. And we'll use the popular images. This restaurant is coming up in Delhi, and there's a popular trend that was going on, and we picked on that. There are trends that keep happening on social media. There was a Wes Anderson trend. Now, Wes Anderson is a very famous Hollywood director who uses the perfect color theory, perfect sort of views, symmetrical frames. So every frame in this movie looks very aesthetically pleasing. And this term aesthetic is, I've heard recently from the youngsters, in a very different connotation. For us, aesthetics meant the design of a building which is pleasing or anything. But aesthetics today to the youngsters are a reel that they create or a social media post that they create, which has got a certain visual value, a certain beautiful visualization. Wes Anderson is an expert in that. So we said, let's use the color palette defined by Wes Anderson. Let's take clues from Old Delhi, the architecture of Old Delhi. Let's mix it up with the references of Wes Anderson movies. They've been shot in south of France, they've been shot in Paris, they've been shot in all these locations which are local locations within Europe. What if we were to mix these two up and ask AI to generate certain views? This is a view from his movie, another view from Wes Anderson movie. We picked up these images, wrote prompts, and generated hundreds and hundreds of these images, which look like Old Delhi but are not Old Delhi. They are almost a visualization in the most pleasing colors, done like Old Delhi but has references from Europe. Going further into it, writing these further prompts, we started coming more and more closer to what a restaurant or a cafe of this nature could be. And these AI-generated images then started resulting into a 3D model for us. This is the design for the restaurant itself, which is pretty much based on the same ideas. And to our surprise, when we do something like this, when we go into this kind of perfection, it also kind of hits on the collective memory of the people who are building it. The contractor who was building it has seen an arch like this somewhere. It hit his collective memory and he's like, I've seen it. I can build it much more easily because I know it's not something new. So we are picking up elements that exist in the collective memory and can be replicated faster and easier, because this restaurant had to be completed in about 45 days. So that's a simulated view, and that is a real view. This restaurant is opening up in the next week. So I'll show you, this is what a simulated view on AI is, and this is what we have constructed. This is one of the spaces which is just sitting out, it's inspired from Suraj Kund. So we took references from Delhi, from places of Delhi, or a local train of Delhi. And that's what the real space looks like. This brings me to the end of my lecture. And so all I would say in the end is computation today is not about computing. It's about living. It's about understanding and making our lives better. It's not about just making your comfort level. It's also hitting at your psychological level. Because what you are feeding yourself today on your smartphone is actually shaping the thinking for tomorrow. It's shaping how you think, how you imagine things. So that gap between the simulated reality and the actual reality is what you are going to produce tomorrow. That, to me, is a wonderful phenomena as a designer, as something that I understand and build upon. Thank you.
Personally, being someone experimenting and developing AI day in and out, so your practical approach to use AI in a more traditional work is really phenomenal. Can I request our session chair, Mr. Saurabh Mehta, to summarize the session, please?
Ladies and gentlemen, we've just had the pleasure of listening to three very enlightened speakers. And now as we navigate this cosmic expanse of their thoughts and ideas to a well-deserved lunch, let's just quickly summarize what they spoke about. I think when we talk about architect Gulati Sahab, I think he really summarized very well what we heard in the previous session on fragility. And I think it's a classic example of how the future of construction and design and how can we really embrace the technology that we have. We heard about the urbanization that is going to grow from 35%. And I think these are the ideas, this is the technology which will help us to be bold, to not make mistakes, and if we do make mistakes, cut our losses in time and really continue to grow. We had Mr. Yadav, who spoke about the entire global perspective on the Indian real estate and how it is growing. He spoke about the China Plus One and the opportunity that it brings about for us. And then he again emphasized the importance of data and availability of data through RERA and other means, which are really unlocking the opportunities which are there in the Tier 1, Tier 2, and even in a regional city. Where do we grow and how do we invest? He also highlighted some of the concerns, the macro indicators, which work in the favor of India, but also the cautions which could go against the story that we have. And finally, we had Professor Merchant, who is also my teacher, who really set the tone, helping us absorb all of this by being at peace with ourselves. And I think the key points from here I would take away are: don't complicate simple things, learn from your environment, and keep jumping for opportunities. And I think that's the essence of what he said. And also the importance of family business, where we must build layer upon layer to continue to grow the business and add a lot of value. So friends, I think these three wonderful speakers have really set the context for the session 1 of this conclave. And now I would like to invite you for lunch. Thank you.
I would request Dr. Dilip K. Patnaik, Vice Chancellor, Medicaps University, Indore, to present the memento to Architect Gulati. I would request Mr. M.S. Shekhar, Vice President Operations, Commercial Vehicles, to present the memento to Mr. Yadav. And I would request Ramatar G. Jaju, President RPL Maheshwari College, to present memento to Dr. Merchant. We are breaking for lunch now, and I request everyone to be back in 30 minutes so we can stick to our schedule, please. Thank you.